Everyone knows the Kennedy name: power, politics, glamour, and heartbreak. But behind all the headlines and history books, there were children, real kids, born into a spotlight they never asked for. So, whatever happened to them? Number 3. John F. Kennedy Jr. Born on November 25, 1960, just 17 days after his father won the presidency. The nation called him John, a nickname the press loved, and a symbol of American optimism. And who could forget that moment? 3-year-old John Jr. saluting his father's casket, a black and white photo that captured the heartbreak of a nation. From that moment, he wasn't just a Kennedy, he was the son of a fallen king. After JFK's assassination, Jackie Kennedy moved her children to New York to escape the fishbowl of D.C., but privacy was a pipe dream. John Jr. grew up under constant scrutiny, paparazzi, headlines, whispers, pressure. He went to elite schools, from collegiate to Phillips Academy, eventually graduating from Brown with a degree in American history. But it wasn't just academics on his mind. John flirted with acting, appeared in amateur plays, and even had a brief moment where Hollywood seemed like a real option. But his mother? Not thrilled. Jackie wanted her son to be grounded, respectable, safe. So John Jr. entered law school at NYU and flunked the bar exam. Twice. Let that sink in. The most famous Kennedy alive couldn't pass the bar. Twice. But he eventually did on his third try and landed a job as an assistant district attorney in Manhattan, where he built up a solid, if quiet, reputation. Despite trying to keep a low profile, John Jr. was irresistible to the media. He was handsome, athletic, idealistic, a real-life Prince Charming in Ray-Bans who rode the subway, dated stars like Daryl Hannah and Madonna, and was constantly dubbed America's most eligible bachelor. And yet, he never seemed to chase fame. It always just found him. In 1995, John Jr. did something bold. He launched a political magazine, but with a pop culture twist. It was called George, named after George Washington. Think politics meets Vanity Fair. He didn't just run the show, he wrote for it. He interviewed Mike Tyson from prison, called out his own cousins for bad behavior, and covered everything from Cuba to the IRA. It was ambitious, creative, a little chaotic, just like him. But it was more than a magazine. George was his way of shaping public discourse without running for office, which many expected him to do. Because let's be honest, everyone thought John Jr. would go into politics. It felt inevitable. But maybe that was the problem. In 1996, John married Carolyn Bessette, a Calvin Klein publicist with model looks and a mysterious vibe. Their wedding was top secret, held on an island, no paparazzi, just love, vows, and candles in a tiny chapel. But married life wasn't easy. The pressure, the attention, the constant spotlight. Carolyn hated it. Friends said the couple fought, often. Still, John adored her. July 16, 1999. The crash, John Jr. had his pilot's license and decided to fly himself, Carolyn, and her sister Lauren to a family wedding on Cape Cod. They never made it. Somewhere near Martha's Vineyard, his plane disappeared. 3 days later, Navy divers found the wreckage. All 3 were dead. He was just 38. The nation was gutted. It wasn't just a crash. It was another Kennedy tragedy. Another golden life lost too soon. Number 2. Caroline Kennedy. Born in 1957, Caroline Bouvier Kennedy was America's darling before she even knew how to tie her shoes. She had a pony named Macaroni, a private kindergarten in the White House, and a mom who made sure her kids stayed grounded, even while the world watched. Her father's assassination rocked her world. She was 6. Imagine that, the entire country grieving, and your dad is the man in the flag-draped casket. Her mom did her best to shield her. New York became their sanctuary, but the grief never really left. Caroline once said, "I have thought about him and missed him every day of my life." When her Uncle Bobby, the beloved Robert F. Kennedy, was murdered in 1968, Caroline lost another father figure. Her mother, desperate for safety, married Aristotle Onassis. The family started spending summers in Greece, and Caroline's life was anything but normal. Despite the chaos, she stayed focused. She went to Radcliffe at Harvard, then Columbia Law School. She stayed away from the spotlight, but never stopped carrying the Kennedy legacy. Caroline never ran for office, but she stayed active in public service. She helped establish the Profile in Courage Award, honoring politicians who took brave, unpopular stands, just like her dad. She co-wrote books on civil rights, privacy law, and her mother's favorite poetry. She even edited volumes of her father's speeches and letters. But she wasn't just about the past. In 2008, she endorsed Barack Obama, saying he reminded her of her father. In 2013, she became U.S. ambassador to Japan, despite having no prior diplomatic experience. But in Japan, she thrived, becoming a beloved figure and advocate for women in leadership. Then, in 2022, she became ambassador to Australia under President Joe Biden. Even in her 60s, Caroline kept showing the world that the Kennedy name still meant something. The last Kennedy standing. After John Jr. died in 1999, Caroline was the only surviving member of JFK's immediate family. She had 3 children with her husband Edwin Schlossberg, Rose, Tatiana, and Jack. And despite all the tragedy, she kept her head high. She once said, "It's not about what you lost. It's about what you do next." Number 1. Patrick Bouvier Kennedy, August 7, 1963. After years of heartbreak, miscarriages, and a stillborn daughter named Arabella, the Kennedys were finally welcoming another child into the world. His name was Patrick Bouvier Kennedy. Born 5.5 weeks premature, Patrick weighed just 4 pounds, 10 ounces, tiny but full of hope. It was a big deal. A sitting U.S. president had just become a father again, the first time that had happened since the 19th century. The press lit up. Americans sent letters. Everyone wanted to believe this child would be the next chapter in the Kennedy story. But things unraveled fast. Patrick was born with a condition called hyaline membrane disease, now known as respiratory distress syndrome, or RDS. Basically, his lungs weren't developed enough to breathe properly on their own. Doctors tried everything: oxygen, incubators, constant monitoring. But it wasn't enough. Just 39 hours after birth, Patrick died in his father's arms on the morning of August 9, 1963. JFK's presidency had already been filled with heavy decisions: Cuba, civil rights, Cold War tension. But insiders say Patrick's death broke something inside him. He was different after that, more withdrawn, more mortal. He even took steps to improve medical research into premature infant care, helping push funding into what would become a revolution in neonatal medicine. It's hard to believe, but back in 1963, babies born prematurely had very little chance. Patrick's death, painful as it was, helped save lives in the decades that followed. At first, Patrick was buried quietly in the Kennedy family plot in Connecticut. But when JFK was assassinated just 15 weeks later, everything changed. Years later, Jacqueline had Patrick's remains reinterred alongside his father at Arlington National Cemetery. Today, Patrick, JFK, and Jackie all rest together. They lived in a world built on myth. They carried expectations no kid ever asked for.